What's going on, everybody? This is Graham, Micah, and a special guest here today. We've got Evan McGee, former Division I quarterback and lifelong friend of ours here on a personal level. Here with our mock draft 4.0 special edition here. Had to throw Evan in the mix. It's kind of an annual thing we do, going through our mock drafts. So definitely wanted to get Evan on here, kind of like our half brother and brother telepathy here. So Evan, welcome to the video here, brother.
Appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Let's do it. All right, cool. So for this edition here, Micah, did you want to take it away? I think we're going to do 1, 2, 3 like we did with Drew a few weeks ago.
Same thing as we did with our episode with Drew, where I'm going to kick us off at pick number 1. We're going to have Evan picking number 2. Evan is our the same way that I'm the Vikings guy, Graham's the Titans guy, Evan's our Panthers guy. So we're going to let Evan have that number 8 pick. So Evan's going to go second, followed by Graham pulling us up on the rear. So, we can just go ahead and get straight into it with the mock draft. And I'm not going to belabor this too much. Everyone knows this pick is coming. He is minus 20,000 odds to go number 1. So everyone kind of knows it. Cam Ward's the pick. I'm not going to belabor it too much. Number 2 is much more important. So, Evan, I'll turn it over to you for that.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much every mock draft I've done, he's gone number 1. So was kind of expecting that. Number 2, though, I've been mixing it up a little bit recently. I've always gone Abdul, but some of the stuff I've been seeing recently is a lot of Travis Hunter at number 2. So I think I'm going to take Travis here. One of, if not the best player in the entire draft. I know we were talking recently about what he did at his pro day and showing a lot of his receiver abilities, skills, kind of not really doing anything on the defensive side of the ball. So I think they would love to have him in the receiving core and then be able to use him on both sides of the ball if they can. But, yeah, I'm going to go Travis here.
So, real quick, it sounds like you are profiling him primarily as a receiver. I know you and Graham, we've talked off camera. You do like him as a receiver quite a bit. So just want to get some clarification there that's kind of what your thought process is.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's great on both sides of the ball, but I just think it's going to be – if he can stick to one side – which I don't know if he's going to. I think his ego and the competitor in him, he's going to want to play both sides, and he's going to want to prove everybody wrong. But I think he is just such a natural mover. Running routes, he's so twitchy, got great ball skills, which works on both sides of the ball. But I just think one guy that he reminds me of is Justin Jefferson, and it's like you can't replicate that. You can't even teach that. So I just think seeing those flashes in at receiver, I think, is super exciting. So that's where I would love to see him selfishly in fantasy as well. But, yeah, I think he'd be super exciting on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. No, all good points there. Micah alluded to it, but Evan and I, we kind of have aligned in this way for a while now. Travis Hunter, he's a little bit of Justin Jefferson, a little bit of Garrett Wilson, just in the way that they move, ball skills, like – just hands in general, but also being able to go up and make contested catches. Like, it's all there. And I think when you've got somebody like that, it's hard to not want to get the ball in his hands. So I think that it all comes down to that. So all good points there, Ev. On to pick number 3, and we didn't clarify, but we did a kind of us as GM last time. This is predictive mock draft here once again. But pick number 3, I am going to go Abdul Carter here. None of us have really seen Shedeur Sanders being like a really viable option at this spot in the top 3. We were kind of on it early. I think, the media is kind of catching up to what teams have always thought, which is that he's probably not going to end up going top 3. I still think the Giants are going to want to find somebody in the draft at some point, but I think adding Abdul would just make too much sense. There's been a lot of conversation about what do you do with Kayvon Thibodeau at this point. We've alluded to it before. You can't ever have too many guys being able to rush the passer. So I think if you want to kick Thibodeau inside some, have Brian Burns and Abdul Carter rush the edge, that sort of thing. Abdul Carter obviously has shown he can drop back into an off-ball spot as well. So I think you just got a really, really versatile, multiple kind of defense look that I think would be a huge win for the Giants. So this is pretty easy for me.
Yeah, and I think with, as you just mentioned, which hasn't really even been a thought in my mind because I've always considered him just a straight edge, you can bring him from depth and you can have that Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns pass rush on the D-line, and you can bring Abdul from depth, and if you have to, just play him at stand-up backer.
That's scary, dude.
That is super scary. So I do love the idea of that. But This pick right here at 4, we're going to switch over to the Patriots. I've gone back and forth on this one. On my very first prediction before the Super Bowl, so February 7th, I made a TikTok about it on our TikTok page if you want to go follow. The top 4 that I predicted was Cam Ward, followed by Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and then Will Campbell. Recently, the kind of buzz has been Armand Membo right here. I'm actually going to flip it back to Will Campbell, which was my original prediction. It seems like the league is much higher on Will Campbell than the draft community, kind of like the people we interact with on a day-to-day basis is not super high on Will Campbell. I quite like Will Campbell. I profile him as a tackle. I know Graham said he profiles him as guard. Evan, I don't know if you've watched a ton of Will Campbell or if you kind of have an opinion on whether guard, tackle, both, but I profile him as tackle. Any thoughts that you got before you pick here at 5?
Early on in the process, I was kind of kicking him into guard in my mind, but recently I just think his tape is too good, and his consistency over time at tackle in the SEC holds strong weight. So I think he'll be able to play tackle. I've been viewing him as a tackle more recently. So
yeah, that's kind of my thought process as well. But sorry, you go ahead, Graham.
Sorry.
Yeah, nope, I'm cutting you off.
I was the only thing I'll add to is just in addition to everything you guys have mentioned, 4-year starter in the SEC, 19 years old, was a captain in that room. I think that's a guy that Vrabel could really latch onto. So I actually think Will Campbell to the Patriots is gaining steam, and I think for those reasons. So I actually see this pick as well. Go ahead, Evan, with pick number 5 here.
Sorry. I'm way behind here.
No, you're good. No, you're good.
Pick 5. Somebody that I just have not really passed on here at 5 is Mason Graham. Definitely can go a lot of other ways. But ultimately, I just think that they've kind of been setting up the interior D-line for somebody like Mason Graham to come in and be a disruptor in the pass game, run game, somebody that has a super high motor, also has the ability to be very good. I think it might have been McShay talking the other day, that there's a lot of guys that have the motor and effort to make themselves good, but not necessarily the skill. And Mason Graham's got both. So I think he's going to be awesome from day one. I think he'd be a perfect fit in there. So we're going to go Mason Graham at 5 here.
I like that. We've talked about the interior of their D-line in particular needing a lot of help throughout the draft. Even James Gladstone, their GM, mentioned that. So I think this is a popular pick, but I think it's because it makes so much sense. Like, I think you've got arguably, depending on who you ask, one of the blue chip players, or at least in that kind of close to tier, at a position of need. So I think usually when those things line up, that makes sense to make the pick.
Yeah.
So good call. Now, I will say something that's been gaining traction. I kind of floated this out to you guys here a little bit before we hopped in here to record. A guy that's been gaining a lot of steam. Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Brugler have rated very highly on their board. Todd McShay, since you mentioned him too there, Evan, he's been talking about this a lot as well. It seems like Jalen Walker, outside linebacker, stand-up linebacker, whatever you want to call him, from Georgia, is going to go very early in this draft. He's been a popular pick at spot number 8 to the Carolina Panthers. I think he's going to go earlier than that. So, Evan, honestly, I could see him maybe at spot number 5. Because we talked about it last time. They've got Trayvon Walker, they've got Josh Hines-Allen, but again, it's the same thing. Like, let's get another guy in there that can rush the passer. And the character report on Jalen Walker is insane. I mean, people have just sung his praises about how he is the alpha dog, literally, no pun intended there, for the Georgia Bulldogs. So I think that while this isn't like maybe the biggest position of need, I think linebacker is somewhere you could definitely look to help the Raiders. This is a culture pick. This is Pete Carroll-esque, in my opinion. I think this is, I think mostly he's gonna go top 8 at the very least. I think 8's his floor, but I think I could see him going as high as 5 or 6.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, I think it's a really great pick. Obviously explosive as all get out. Kind of that Trayvon Walker type of pick, like someone with, I guess there's a couple guys who could, are more project picks than usual. Jalen Walker, although, he has the experience and the success, he does feel a little bit more project-y to me. But I think nonetheless, as you mentioned, a lot of the top draft guys have sung his praises, and then the character seems off the charts. So I'm never going to be mad at a guy who can combine that ball ability with good character. So I love that for the Las Vegas Raiders. Pick 7 here. This is where I'm going to take Armand Membo. This kind of rounds out the offensive line. They've spent a lot of capital there over the past couple years. Obviously, last year they took tackle on the other side. Membo's got the guard potential. I profile him as a guard, and a lot of people profile him as tackle, so I'm kind of backwards with the Will Campbell, Armand Membo position spots there. But Membo seems like one of the most pro-ready guys on the offensive line, on a Jets offensive line that's going to need him. So I'm just going to go with Armand Membo there at 7.
Yeah, that's. I have to say, I love this pick. I mean, I think for the Jets, you've had such a bad offensive line for so long. You get, in my opinion, I think he's pretty easily right tackle, so we'll disagree on that one. But that's kind of the one spot you need somebody to slot in. You got Olu Fashanu, you got Elijah Vera Tucker, you've got these other guys that they've added to that room. Right tackle is still kind of that big hole on that offensive line, so I think this would be an easy transition for him. And of course, again, kind of rounding out that offensive line ultimately. So I think this is an awesome pick. We got you back on camera now, Ev.
All right, perfect. So honestly,
pick number 8, you definitely got some options here. I'll let you take it away, though.
Yeah, so recently, Jalen Walker's been all over Carolina Twitter recently. So he's kind of been the pick for myself and a lot of people. But what I've been saying probably the past few weeks is there's not many guys that I think we're going to take at 8. I think there's a few guys that are, if they're available, we're taking at 8. And there's also a group of guys that would be in a more or be in a better range to trade back for, not necessarily thinking that we're going to trade back. I don't think there's really a ton of people that are wanting to trade up. Somebody that I could see trading up would be the Cowboys right here with Genty still available. And honestly, I think that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. I'm going to have the Cowboys trade up. Let's just do 12 for 8 right now. Makes it easy. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, going to have the Cowboys trading up to 8 here. And they're going to be taking running back of the future, blue chip player. In my opinion, top 3, 4 player in the draft. So we're going to take Genty here.
Man, that's spicy, and I love it. I think that if there's a player, because I think you're right. I think in terms of trading, I don't know if there's going to be a ton of teams jumping up to trade for guys. Ashton Genty is the guy that somebody like the Cowboys would certainly trade up for. It was a popular landing spot in kind of the pre-draft process for a while here. If he's fallen past the Raiders at 6, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to go up and get him. Probably wouldn't have to give up too much. I mean, you are going in the top 10, but they have the 12th pick. So I don't think the compensation would be too bad there. I love that.
Yeah, I've been literally slamming skill position. I know we did our draft video not that long ago about biggest draft needs. I just literally said skill position for the Cowboys. Like, they just need desperate help.
Yeah.
To kind of complement CeeDee Lamb out there, because besides him, it's really nobody. And Ashton Genty being, as Evan already mentioned, this is a top 3 player in the class. This is a blue chip guy. I've seen people on Twitter refer to him, scouts and whatnot, refer to him as a, Hall of Fame type of player. And that's ultimately what you want to do, is you want to draft Hall of Fame type of players. So the trade up makes total sense. I think the partner, as far as the trade, makes total sense with the Cowboys doing that. It feels very Jerry Jones to do that.
Yeah.
So
this is very realistic. I can see that for sure. Yeah. Especially with the Panthers too, as you mentioned, Ev. Like, there are probably a lot of teams who would like to trade down, but I think they certainly could be an option. Get some more draft capital, keep building up the defense. I think that would make sense, especially in the range they're at. Still need defense, but there's probably not a guy you love taking at 8 in this situation with Jalen Walker off the board. So I think this makes a ton of sense. With that being said, we are on to the New Orleans Saints. This has been like the hardest team to mock for, I feel like, in my opinion, just because we alluded to it in our last video. They just have so many needs, so many holes, got to get younger, got to get better, more explosive, all that stuff. A guy that I think is the league is a bit more split on than I realized. I thought early on, like after the Senior Bowl and stuff, this is a guy easily top 10. But, at this point, it seems like there could be some discrepancy. But I'm still going to stick with my original prediction. I think this guy is going to go top 15 at least in the draft. We're going to go Shamar Stewart, edge rusher out of Texas A&M. I think that edge is a pretty significant need for the Saints. I think it's a safe way to go about the kind of their first pick with the Kellen Moore tenure. A lot of people have talked about, this being a quarterback destination. I'm not sure they're going to do that at pick number 9. I think there is maybe a quarterback they're going to take at some point. I think it's a little rich for Shador at this point. I don't love the fit with Kellen Moore anyways, and I definitely don't think Jackson Dart is in this range. I know some, Todd McShay in one is actually in his recent mock draft had Dart going here. There may be some love for Dart in that building, but I just don't think you take him at spot number 9. I don't think they ultimately will. So we're going Shamar Stewart. Seems like a fairly straightforward pick if I was GM for the Saints.
Yeah, and I like that. I think inevitably, I don't want to say inevitably because I don't know what you guys have the plan for, but if we do see another quarterback going, I'd love to hear Evan's opinion on that, given that he's played the position. He's kind of our expert in that area. So we'll let Evan discuss that if we do end up seeing a quarterback go here in round 1 outside of the number 1 pick in Cam Ward. But pick number 10 here with the Chicago Bears. I did this in one of my mock drafts, and I don't know if we ever posted it. I don't remember if it was ever a thing, and now it's starting to become a thing, so maybe I should have said something first before it got popular. I do think Amarian Hampton could sneak into – I think this is his ceiling for me. Like, this is the absolute highest he goes. But I think that Ben Johnson has the reins in that front office. I think that Ryan Poles is just the yes man for right now. So with no more running backs here, Amarian Hampton actually being my RB3 behind Caleb Johnson, but I know the league is quite high on him. This is your bowling ball with a rocket strapped to him. That's the type of player that Amarian Hampton is. So Ben Johnson takes him here at 10.
I like it. This is a pick that makes sense. I could definitely see Amarian Hampton going in this range. I think. Well, I'll save that for later in the mock. I could definitely see that. Yeah, good call.
I do too. Big on Amarian Hampton. Recently had him going top 10 as well. Just realized I traded myself out of Panthers pick. Sorry.
You did. Maybe you can be honorary 12th pick. I want to at least. I'll make the pick, but go ahead.
Let's do a little trade here. I'll take 12. You take 11.
I think that's fair.
Okay, yeah. That's fair. Yeah, I was going to say, I'll at least get your perspective. But, okay, cool. Let's go with the San Francisco 49ers here. So this is a team that I think, could really go a couple ways. Micah went Jihad Campbell last time in one of our recent mocks, but that was when we were picking. I think, to me, this is either going to be D-line, secondary, or offensive line. I don't think offensive line is really in play at this spot. I know Josh Simmons is a guy that we like here, but I just don't know if that happens. It still feels a little early for Josh Simmons in terms of prediction here. So in my mind, I think that, again, D-line is certainly in contention. And again, I think secondary is certainly a spot as well. We're going to go Jahdae Barron, nickel corner out of Texas. A guy that I think the league is still fairly high on. They did lose Hufanga in free agency, Travarius Ward, in free agency as well. I could see, Will Johnson maybe being the pick here. I think they just end up taking whichever guy they like more probably. Barron is a little bit more versatile, can play nickel for you, could maybe play your boundary corner potentially if he develops there a little bit as well. But just an instinctive, good football player overall. I think this would be at least the direction that the 49ers would go at this point.
Yeah, and before we get to Evan here at 12, I do want to say something about Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron feels very similar in not the play style, which you can maybe argue play style, but also the type of rise that he had later in the process to like a Devon Witherspoon of a few years ago, where it's like, people were onto him, and then he shot up boards. And then now, in this case, he's our number one corner going off the board. So is it the biggest need in the world for the 49ers? Secondary is certainly a need. Renardo Green looks solid in that secondary. There's a lot of other pieces they have. But Barron, I think the talent is undeniable. So I can't be mad at picking the best player available at this spot.
The last thing I'll say about the 49ers, it is kind of weird, though, because you talk about needs. It feels like this is a team that low-key got kind of bad overnight.
Yeah.
And I know they weren't great last year anyways, but, there are a decent bit of holes on the 49ers at this point, just with an aging roster and, needing an influx of youth and that sort of thing. So this will be interesting. I think this is going to be one of those picks that is hard to to peg exactly who they take. So that's where my mind's at least right now. So
Yeah, I like it. Well, back to the Panthers here. So, like I mentioned before, there's a few guys that are in play at 8 for Carolina that I don't know if are going to make it that far, such as Jalen Walker, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham. Some guys earlier on in the process that I was thinking of was Will Johnson. Still like him a lot. He's just getting pushed down boards now. But one guy that's getting thrown down the draft board more and more, I've seen him as late as 22, which I think that's way too late for him. I think he's way too talented. Number one receiver in my mind. I think going and getting Bryce a true number one receiver like Ted McMillan is a priority in this draft, whether it's first round or second round. But if he's available at 12 and we're trading down, I don't think you can pass on him.
I like that. I think, especially with the trade down, maybe a little rich at 8, but I do think that's an under-talked about or under-discussed, I guess, need for the Panthers. We talk about defense because it is such a major need for them, but I think receiver is still in that range as well, and like a true kind of number one guy. And I think Tet could develop into that. Maybe if it's not on the outside, he certainly could play outside, but I think overall you just need a playmaker, and I like that. Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that we've had in the building for 30 visits, pro visits, local visits, whatever it is, and Tet seems to be the only guy on the offensive side of the ball that we're even talking to when it comes to first round. And ultimately, it's going to be one of the two. It's either going to be Tet, Jalen Walker, or another edge defensive player. So we'll see how it goes, but I love Tet. Love him as a player. I think he's going to be awesome, and I love this pick for Carolina.
Yeah. I think that certainly Evan and I feel Graham might like someone like Matthew Golden a little bit better, but Tet is, my number 2 receiver behind Luther Burden, and I think Tet is definitely deserving of being a top 15 pick. And as Evan mentioned, I've seen him push down. I've actually seen him push down to 31 to the Chiefs. So I've seen some ridiculous things for him.
That's just too low.
The Tet slander is getting a little out of hand. And I think if Carolina trades back in this scenario and they pick at 12 and they land a wide receiver 1 of the future, I think you're ecstatic if you're a Panthers fan. So certainly like that pick there. Pick number 13 here for the Dolphins. Graham kind of took the guy who I was originally eyeing in Jahdae Barron. I think that this is a really strong spot for him. I know Graham did that in one of our recent mocks, and I was fawning over it. But I think, especially with the departure of Teron Armstead there at left tackle, they have Patrick Paul to replace him out of Houston. He looked solid later in the year. I know that I was referring to Broshmo is a Dolphins fan, so I was kind of getting his input a little bit to see what his thoughts were. But he feels okay with Patrick Paul there on the left side, so I don't think tackle is an immediate replacement, at least on the left side of the offensive line. However, the rest of the offensive line is pretty bad. And with that being said, I am going to go Tyler Brooker here. I think that this gives you the guard spot to shore up. Obviously, he played a little bit of right guard here in 2022, but primarily on that left side. I think that left side of your offensive line, at least you've gotten 2 first-round. Patrick Paul was a first-rounder, correct?
I think he was their second-round pick. I was going to
second-round pick.
I think he was their second pick. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, priority pick. They spent a priority pick on offensive line, and I think that they do it again here, being the 13th overall pick and the best interior offensive lineman in the class. So guard is much needed. We take guard.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that's the direction they go. They need to win games. I think you got to protect up front. Tua's health, all that stuff is in play. So, Evan's actually back to you here with the Colts at 14.
Awesome. Yeah. So, this pick is pretty obvious to me. I don't think I've gone anywhere else other than Tyler Warren. In maybe 2 other drafts, I've gone somewhere different. But I'm going to go Tyler Warren here. One of the best offensive weapons in the entire draft. I think he's super versatile. In my opinion, not the best receiving tight end. I think Colson Loveland takes that. I might have Colson Loveland higher than Tyler Warren on some days, but I think just overall getting somebody like Tyler Warren for Anthony Richardson to thrive with, I think is super important. I think he would be a great pick for them.
Yeah, or Daniel Jones. We don't know.
Never know. Hopefully it's AR.
Yeah, hopefully for AR's sake and the Colts' sake, it's
for Colts fans' sake. My gosh, if I got to see Daniel Jones out there playing quarterback when I had the number 4 overall pick 2 years ago, I'm on watch.
Time to hop franchise after that.
100%.
Yeah. No, that's a good. I mean, I think that makes sense. Mike and I talked about like their tight end room is barren, like absolutely barren. So I think it makes a lot of sense to grab. For a lot of people in the league, it sounds like maybe another blue player in some guys' minds. I don't know if he's quite that level, but definitely a very, very good tight end prospect. So I think that makes a ton of sense for them. So. All right, on to the Atlanta Falcons. I've been preaching edge rusher for the Falcons for the longest time, and I'm not going to change my tune right now. I think Jihad Campbell is in contention, but we're going to end up going Mike Green, edge rusher out of Marshall. So this is a guy who's number 5 on my big board, I believe. No, number 6, I think. Either way, very high, top 10 player for me in the class. Just an arsenal of pass rush movements. He got the athletic profile. He did his thing against Ohio State. These other lower end competition teams. Character concern, of course, could play a factor. But I think if we eliminate that, this is again easily a top 10 player just off of tape for me alone here. And again, I think edge rusher just makes a ton of sense for the Falcons. I think this could be another trade down team potentially. I think they only have 5 picks in this draft. So could definitely see a trade down here. They've actually done some work on tackle, so maybe that would be a spot if they traded down. Maybe corner, who knows exactly. But for me, I think Mike Green is just too good of a player to pass up. Again, pending the character concerns all end up being, not a huge deal for teams.
Yeah, and I fully agree with you there. Mike Green, explosive as all get out. I feel like all these pass rushers are explosive in their own way. Mike Green, obviously, with the best production out of everybody, as well as grading out. He graded out as one of the best, and it just seems like he always wins on tape. So, granted, he did play at Marshall, so the competition level is not quite as high as some of these other G4 teams, G5 teams, or I guess Power 5 teams, P4 teams. But
I'll add to it, though. They played against Ohio State. He looked like one of the best players on the field against Ohio State. I don't know how his grade shook out in that. Yeah, it looks like not the best PFF grade on that one. But in my opinion, watching that game, he looked like he belonged out there for sure. So the overall competition wasn't there, but he seems like he belongs. And Senior Bowl, too. We talked about that before.
Yeah, and I think the Senior Bowl did a lot for a lot of people. And I don't want to use PFF grades as the end all be all. At the end of the day, all 3 of us agree. If you watch the tape and that boy nice, let's forget about the grades. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So pick number 16 here. This guy's fallen way too far. This is definitely a prospect who, kind of like Ted McMillan, we are overthinking a little bit. I feel like I've flown through all my picks. I haven't really given him much time to simmer, but we're gonna go Will Johnson here. I feel like same as the conversations have gotten out of hand and the disrespect for Will Johnson has gotten out of hand. Guy who's going to be dominant at the next level. I'm fully convinced.
The tape is too good.
The tape is way too. The tape is way too good.
As well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Will Johnson fan. He's the number 7 player on my big board, number 2 corner if you count Travis Hunter in there. But yeah, I love me some Will Johnson.
Yeah,
love it. The Bengals, I think. This was absolutely horrible last year. I'm going to cut out there. I'm not sure.
Defense was bad, right? That's what you said?
Yeah. Defense was horrible last year. You can't.
We already knew that anyway, so it's okay.
You can't have a top 3 quarterback in the league that's in the MVP race with a top 2 receiver in the league not being able to win games whenever you're putting up points. So they've got to go defense first round, in my opinion. I think they're going to go edge. I don't know if they bring back Trey Hendrickson. Even if it's not a pass rushing edge, I think you've got to bring in somebody. But I think a super athletic, also been getting some disrespect. Granted, his 2024 wasn't as good as his 2023. I think somebody like James Pierce could come in and make an impact, just getting to the pass or getting to the quarterback. I think he's going to be great. I think he's super athletic, got great traits. Again, similar to Mike Green, has had some character questions. Not sure how true they are. I mean, you can only really trust so much that you hear nowadays. But yeah, I'm going to go James Pierce here to the Bengals.
Yeah, I like that. I'll let Micah give some thoughts. I know he's not huge on James Pierce Jr., but undeniably a good player and had the production. He's got the athletic makeup. I mean, this is a guy that I think very easily you could see the projection to being a solid, at least solid contributor for defenses, and a guy who's athletic. Again, I think the main thing with him for a lot of teams is just the football character concerns. Just It sounds like he's just maybe not all the way bought in, stuff like that. So I think if he checks those boxes for you, I think I'm fine taking him at this spot personally. So
Yeah. And I'm certainly a little bit lower on James Pierce. I believe he's in my late 30s to early 40s for prospects. But I mean, I just prefer some of the other edge rushers over James Pierce. There's too many questions for James Pierce. Obviously, you mentioned the character stuff, which I won't belabor. As far as tape goes, I don't love his bend. I think that he is incredibly athletic. I think he's a little light to be a primary edge or to be,
light.
like your dominant edge player. But I think that certainly, the numbers don't lie, and he wins pass rush sets more than anybody else in this class. So, Graham, you got some thoughts?
Well, just to credit to Evan as well, going to a team like the Bengals, assuming they do retain Trey Hendrickson and pay him what he deserves. I mean, James Pierce Jr. as your weak side edge rusher.
Sure,
That's
yeah.
not you could do a lot worse.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to be your main get after the quarterback guy. It's a guy that you can complement with Trey Hendrickson. So I think fit matters a lot for all these prospects, and so I could see the vision there.
Yeah, with Hendrickson, if he comes back, this feels a lot. I'm a lot more bought in on this pick if you got Hendrickson on the other side of him. I'll say that.
Yeah, totally fair. All right, we are on to the Seattle Seahawks. I think we know their biggest needs, right? Interior offensive line. They've got their bookend tackles. At this spot here, again, there are some edge rushers I like. Donovan Ezereku, I think, is in play. I think they took Byron Murphy last year, so I don't know if interior D-line is really the move. I think there are some guys that could certainly go in this range, but we are going to go interior offensive line specifically for them. A guy that I think would provide the most versatility, maybe a little rich for some people, but I think is certainly in play at this spot. This is probably as early as he goes, to be honest, but I think it's a guy who, can play center, can play guard, that sort of thing for you. It's going to be Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State, another guy who showed out at the Senior Bowl, and again, proved that he could compete with the best of them, even in a FCS school. Although North Dakota State is not it's a well-known program in FCS for sure. So, I think Gray Zabel makes sense for them for the versatility and the need. I think outweighs everything here.
Yeah, 100%. And Evan, I don't know if you got any thoughts on Gray Zabel that you want to share as well, but I think the position versatility is super important, especially considering a team like the Seahawks where you can kind of plug him at any of the 5 spots. But, you got any thoughts you want to add on, Ev? Are you good?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched a ton of Gray Zabel. From what I've seen and what I've heard, I think he's very versatile, great player, has good tape. Obviously, he's huge. What is he, 6'6"?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, 6'6", 305. Good size, and whenever I was watching or looking at the Beast from Dane Brugler, he actually has him as his number 1 center. I haven't even been thinking about him as a center, but I like it a lot. I think he has the versatility, and I think he's going to be a great anchor for them. So
cool. Yeah, I love that. Pick 19 here. Gosh, it pisses me off because I keep looking at players. I'm like, dude, he should be going sooner than this, but that's just the reality. You already know I love Walter Nolan. I'm not going to do it to everybody. I've done it before last time. And all of our viewers got mad. All of our viewers, meaning my mom, she got pissed because I picked him there. No, 19. I don't think he goes that high either, just to add that on real quick. But, 19, someone who I do think needs to go. There are 2 guys who I'm kind of looking at here. Let me kind of gather my thoughts here. I think Micah Williams being here is certainly an option and certainly someone who I think deserves to go here. Jihad Campbell, dude. I love me some Jihad Campbell. This feels like the most common spot for him, given that linebacker is one of their needs. But the sideline to sideline is too much. He's way too explosive. Also, edge being a need. Aside from or opposite of I can't remember the cat's name who they have rushing the edge, but
Hassan Reddick.
Not the one who they brought in, the one they already had. It's all right.
Yeah,
they already had some edge rushers, but I think adding to the defense, especially since they retained both Mike Evans Mike Evans is back anyways, but retaining Chris Godwin, I think that you kind of can scratch off receiver comfortably, at least for this year. And then they obviously have some depth there as well. But Jihad Campbell to pick at 19.
I think I think this is almost a lock unless Jihad Campbell goes earlier. There's been a lot of buzz and you mentioned it, Micah. I mean, it's a popular pick, but there's been a lot of buzz about the Bucs loving the linebackers and wanting to get one in the first round. So I think this would be a really nice pick for them, and it sounds like somebody that's very firmly on their radar. So
Yeah.
I'm actually glad you went there because I think this probably will happen. So
Yeah, I love that.
over to you, Ev, for the Broncos.
Yeah, to me, I think with Amari and Hampton gone, I think this is kind of a battle of who you like more between Matthew Golden and Luther Burden. I go back and forth on this every day. On my big board, I have them side by side. I give the edge to Matthew Golden. I think his route running, I think he might have slightly better hands, more of a hands catcher. Also, 4.29 speed. He might not show it all the time on film, but it's there. And I think he would be a great fit for, honestly, any team. I would love to see him in Carolina as well. But I think we're going to go Matthew Golden here. Give Bo Nix some more weapons. I know they have Marvin Mims, correct?
Yeah.
Mims, who kind of plays a slot, but I don't really think he's getting more than 3 targets a game, 3 catches a game. So if you can bring somebody like Matthew Golden in that can be alongside Noah Fant coming in.
Cortland Sutton's still there.
Sutton. Yeah, so I think you're adding in some good weapons. I think Matthew Golden would be a great pick. Also Luther Burden, but ultimately going Matthew Golden here.
And I know you can kind of attest to this as well. As a quarterback, a young quarterback specifically, when you realize you have the guy, and obviously the Broncos know they have the guy in Bo Nix, you want to give him as much assistance as you can in the offensive line and then receiving room. So, Evan, I know you know the importance of having good receivers out there and having good protection. So, Matthew Golden's a phenomenal pick. I love that.
Yeah, I think that makes this was a sneaky need for me for the Broncos. It was receiver. You know, we talked about it in our draft needs video. Defense is pretty well set, so I don't know unless they just want to keep adding to it. If there's a guy they love there at 20, they take. I think this could be your joker. I know we always keep referring back to it, but I think Sean Payton said that for a reason. They're looking for that guy, and I think Matthew Golden could play Z for them. Let Cortland Sutton play your X. Marvin Mims can still get his burn every once in a while too. But I really like that pick for them. I'll be interested to see because I think this is something that Broncos fans or people are maybe not talking about that much. But I think this is a good fit there. So and a guy that I think was in play here at 21. But we are going to go on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think from the intel that I have seen, it sounds like it's 100% going to be Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers. Now, with that being said, if Aaron Rodgers for some reason does something unprecedented, I think you have to take quarterback. I mean, I think it's
your hands are tied at that point. I mean,
your hands are tied. I mean, you can't go into there with Mason Rudolph being the only quarterback on your roster. They don't have a second-round pick, so I think that quarterback would 100% be the play here at pick number 21. I think it's still somewhat in play at this spot. For me, I hesitate to put Shedeur Sanders here. I know he just made a visit to Pittsburgh today, but I feel like the Steelers are still a little bit burned from the Kenny Pickett decision a few years ago, and I think they grabbed him at pick number 20 as well, or around that range. Kind of similar, not similar prospects from like a play style standpoint per se, but just the fact that like maybe not the elevator that you're looking for, can do what you need to do on offense and execute an offense, but not the guy that is going to get you over the hump. And I think that's where the Steelers should be looking because they're already at the hump. They're used to being 9-8, sneaking in the playoffs, being just above 500. I don't think you take a quarterback that is going to keep you at that level. I think you need somebody who could you take a swing at a guy who could elevate you. So, I'm looking at like a Milrow or something like that maybe. Not at pick 21. I think he's not going in the first round.
No shot.
All that being said, there's the pick that I'm going to make here, a guy that, again, I've kind of been alluding to the fact that Steelers, I think, are a sneaky defensive line team. I think this could be tackle potentially. We're going to go Derek Harmon out of Oregon, a guy that I think is going to go fairly high. I think he'll be probably the second interior D lineman taken after Mason Graham. Again, he's been on at least one visit to Pittsburgh. I think this is probably where they end up going. A guy's got great tape. A guy that I think just makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. And I just don't see them pulling the trigger on quarterback at 21 in this situation.
Yeah. And real quick, Derek Harmon, one of his biggest knocks is that what's the word I'm looking for? That light lower half. He's got athlete's ankles. You can tell he's athletic out there, and he's also got that 6'5", 310 frame. So he's got the quickness down to play in the league. If he can get some coaching, but if he can get some kind of mentoring from someone like Cameron Hayward and get that translating into power, the combination that he has with the speed already, if he can get some power behind it in a 310 frame, I don't think it'd be that hard. Derek Harmon could be a problem for a long time. So I really like that pick. And
43 pressures.
Yeah.
As a D tackle,
from the
playing from the interior.
Right.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, he's a freak. Pick 22 here. I hate that I'm not being able to talk about a lot of these guys because they feel so obvious to me. I'm gonna pick Colston Loveland, but we're gonna hold off on that for just a second. I keep eyeing Malachi Starks up here. Matthew Thompson Starks. No. Malachi Starks. I keep eyeing him. I know we've talked about it before, and it always happens on draft night. I'm going to go ahead and say something that's been on my mind. Malachi Starks is going to go higher than where we have him. He's going to be a top 20 pick. I think that we see some surprises somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised if Malachi Starks randomly ends up on the Jets. You know what I mean? Like, I could see there's going to be some surprises in here, and I just keep having to feel like I need to refer back to that every time I look at a draft or every time I do a mock. But yeah, enough about me rambling. We're going to go Colston Loveland here. If he's there, it's the pick. I don't see any way that Harbaugh passes on his Michigan boy at a position of need, considering he's a top 10 player in the class. I don't see a feasible possibility that if he's here, it's not the pick. So he's here, so he's going to be the pick.
100% agree. I don't think this is his, I guess, floor.
I would consider this his floor as well.
I don't think he makes it past 22 if he's available. The connection between him and Harbaugh, with him also being an amazing safety blanket.
Mm-hmm.
I think recently our boy Ladd McConkey's been that for them. But I think he can be moved all over. I think Ladd's great. So I love that pick. He's gone there pretty much every time for me as well. Also, back to what you were saying about Malachi Starks. I love Malachi Starks. He's also in that group of Tet McMillan, Will Johnson guys where I think are getting – like people are just overthinking. And granted, his 2024, again, wasn't as good as his 2023. But being a captain as a true freshman on a Georgia defense, to me, says a lot. I think he's an amazing player. I think he's going to be great. Best safety in the class for me. So not going Malachi Starks here, though. I think that the Green Bay Packers are in desperate need of a wide receiver one. They didn't go get one in free agency. One guy that I love a lot that has potential to be a great receiver in the league, with his size, athletic ability, twitch, route running, hands, I think Jaden Higgins has a good chance to sneak into the first.
Let's
go. I think this might be maybe not his ceiling to go, but I've had Jaden Higgins here recently. I'm going Jaden Higgins, 23 overall, the Green Bay Packers.
I love that. I mean, I love it for the pick. I hate that he's going to my rival. I've got my little coaster here for the Vikings. So, no, I hate that he goes there. But yeah, no, I actually love that Jaden Higgins sneaks into the first. I think that the size, the release package, he feels so Packer receiver. It's actually insane. Like, if you had to pick one spot for him that feels like he could go to or feels like he could play for, it would be the Packers. So, obviously, I have guys like Luther Burden higher, but I think that for the fit, I think that Jaden Higgins makes so much sense. Graham?
Same.
Yeah. I'm going to reference back to something that both of you guys kind of touched on, maybe Micah a little bit more than Evan, but you did allude to it a little bit with the surprise of Jaden Higgins being here. There's going to be a lot of interesting or surprising picks in this first round because of a point that we've talked about a few times, which is the fact that there's going to be so many guys graded at a similar level in the 15 to 50 range for teams. And so we're going to see a lot of guys go at spots you wouldn't expect. Different guys go above other guys, that sort of thing. Not a ton of trades, maybe potentially. With that being said, though, I want that to lead into trade here with the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings have 4 draft picks this year. definitely a trade down team. So we're going to trade with the Cleveland Browns coming up from pick 33, I believe they have. First pick in the second round. They're going to move up to 24. Don't care what the compensation looks like right now. Yeah, just mortgage their future. Why don't you?
Yeah, me
There you
neither.
go. So, all right. Either way, the Vikings are going to end up with more than their current 4 picks. We are going to trade up for Mr. Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. Couple reasons that I think this could happen. One, we took Travis Hunter number 2. I think that pairing him back up with Shedeur would make so much sense on a number of different reasons. Jimmy Haslam is doing backflips, the owner of the Cleveland Browns. This is what you need to get your fan base even more on board than they
Deion's
already were.
doing backflips, man.
Deion's doing
Yeah,
backflips.
dude.
They've got connections inside that Browns building. Even going back to Pat Shurmur, offensive coordinator at Colorado, obviously former Cleveland Brown coach, and then finally as well Kevin Stefanski. This is one of the best fits for Shedeur Sanders is Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah.
The way he runs his offense, doesn't need a big arm guy, doesn't need a mobile guy, just needs somebody who he can teach the timing of. And again, I think Shedeur's timing is getting a little bit overblown, but I think he's at least a decent processor, a better than decent processor, but somebody who can really thrive in that Kevin Stefanski offense. Again, pairing him back up with Travis Hunter just makes too much sense to me, and I think that good enough value if you really love Shedeur to go get him at this spot.
Yeah, and before Evan, because I want Evan to kind of touch it, because this is obviously quarterback, that's his domain, but my favorite characteristics, I know we like to bash on Shedeur, is his toughness in the pocket. I think that giving
100%.
him a solid offensive line, albeit they're aging, but it's a solid offensive line. It's a middle-of-the-pack offensive line, maybe better. You give Shedeur an offensive line, which is one of the boxes that he needs, and given with his ability to stand in the pocket and deliver is something that Stefanski looks for. Obviously, being a former Viking, I've seen it a lot. Deliver on time, make the right reads, and be tough in the pocket. I think that Shedeur can do those things, and I think that he can do them quite well if he has adequate coaching and talent around him. And if he has his boy out there, he's got Hunter, who they took it to, Jerry Jeudy, he's got some other help on the offensive line. I think that this is the best possibility for Colorado camp. Chris is very happy. Our buddy Chris, yeah.
The stars aligned too well in this situation
Yeah.
to pass up on.
I like that a lot. I like it a lot. And honestly, everything you just said, Micah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I personally am a fan of Shedeur. I like him a lot. Very exciting player. Confidence through the roof. Has a great ball. Throws with great touch. Back to what Graham said, I don't know if he throws with great timing right now. I think that's something that can be taught. But I think pairing him back up with Travis Hunter would be absolutely awesome. I don't think ESPN would post about anything different than the Bears for the next 10 years.
No, nothing else.
But no, I would love that. And if the Bears front office and coaching staff could convince Travis Hunter to stay on the offensive side of the ball, I think he ends up being a top 10 receiver within just a few years. So just another reason to pair them back up. Love that pick. And I guess this is you, Micah, now at 25?
Yeah, this is me at 25. Okay. You guys are making it so easy on me. Like, I feel like the picks are staring me in the face.
You've gotten all the obvious picks.
I've gotten all the obvious picks. I know. I want to do something fun. Like, I want to just say screw it and take Josh Thompson out of BYU, but no.
Take Matthew Starks here.
Take Matthew Starks.
I'll take Matthew Starks. Pairing up the Ohio State tackle with the Ohio State quarterback for a team that desperately needs offensive line, blah, blah. It's boring, but it makes the most sense. So I'm not going to talk about it too much.
You'll have your shine next time, buddy. We'll get to Walter Nolan eventually. You can go ahead and talk about Walter Nolan.
I'll just turn my mic off and let y'all take over the rest of the mock. I believe this is Graham with the Rams.
No, we're back to Evan with the Rams.
We're back to Evan. Sorry.
Yeah. No, all good. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to kind of switch it up here. I'm not sure if you guys are expecting this. Could be. I mean, it's not too far off the board for what he did at the Combine and what I've just been hearing about him. And his film is pretty awesome. Amazing speed, great athlete, and I think pairing him up with McVay, I don't think he can go wrong when it comes to developing players and drafting players. So I might be wrong in drafting this for him, but I'm going Maxwell Hairston here to the Rams to bolster up the secondary.
We talked about corner being one of their biggest, pretty much their only major need at this point. So I think this makes a ton of sense. An athletic guy to go with that already incredible young front seven they have. I think corner is very firmly in play here, Evan. So I'm going to actually agree with you on this pick here. We don't know if this is the corner. I think this is a guy that is going to certainly get some play potentially because of the speed and the athletic profile. So I could definitely see it. I think this is actually not too far off at all.
Yeah, personally, not my CB3, but I've just been seeing buzz of him in the first round over these other guys, trying to make it a little bit more realistic. And yeah, so love Maxwell Harrison, but
I think with the front seven that the Rams have, I think getting someone with big play ability when the ball's in the air, and that's Maxwell Harrison, I think that could bode super well. Like if you have incredible pressure from the front seven, your corners don't need to hold up super long. They can just turn around and make plays. And I think that's what Maxwell Harrison is at his best. So I think the fit makes a ton of sense. Again, he's not my corner 3 at this spot, but the fit is phenomenal. And I think at the end of the day, fit matters more, in some cases, in most cases, I would say, than whether you can actually play or not. And, Maxwell Harrison's a phenomenal fit.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you guys have said. On to the Baltimore Ravens here. So we've talked about it extensively. A team that historically has traditionally always gone just BPA, best player available. I think we've talked a few times about edge rusher being something that they could certainly look to do. Like Donovan Ezereku a lot here. However, we are going to go Matthew Malachi Starks here to the Baltimore Ravens.
I'm never living that down.
No,
I'm never living that down.
Never.
I don't know what's worse, Matthew Starks or Adam Johns.
Adam
Jobs.
Adam
Yeah.
Jobs. Little inside joke there. Yeah.
Little inside joke.
But no, so yeah, Malachi Starks here, I think, again, is it the biggest position of need? No, but at the same time, you pair up him, Kyle Hamilton, the rest of their secondary, like, why not just get this good of a player at the spot? I think this is a no-brainer for them, again, especially in line with their philosophy. Like, they, again, traditionally just go best player available no matter the spot. They grabbed Nate Wiggins in the first round last year. They've got Marlon Humphrey. They've got other guys. They've got other pieces. Like, why not,
Yeah. It's BPA, and it's always going to be BPA for the Ravens until that front office decides to make changes or switch. It's going to be BPA. He's far and away the best player available at this spot, so can't be too mad at that. Detroit Lions. Kenneth Grant is staring me in the face, and he has been for about 12 picks now. I want to take him. I think that D-tackle, granted the health has been bad. I think edge is more of a need. Kenneth Grant is obviously 320 plus, so he's gonna play in the middle certainly. There's no really moving him around. I think Ezereku is still there. I think it's gonna be D-line. It's gonna be defense. I'll say that it's gonna be defense certainly. Question is, do we think it's edge? I think Micah Williams is a really strong option here, and kind of just pick your flavor between Ezereku and Micah Williams. I think Micah Williams offers a little bit more upside, especially in the running game, or the run stopping ability, I should say. So we're going to go with Micah Williams here. I think it was one of the two, as we have the back-to-back Georgia players going here. But, yeah, edge is a need, so we're going to take edge.
I like that. Pair up with Aiden Hutchinson makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
True edge setter, in my opinion. I don't know if he's going to be somebody that's getting a high sack count, but he's a freak, super strong, also very young, very raw player, so I like that.
I think you're a good run stopper as well. Sorry, I just wanted to add that.
No, Evan kind of touched on it briefly there at the beginning of that, but I think that you can, even if you tell Micah Williams, like, hey, we just had Aiden Hutchinson play through 5 weeks, 6 weeks as the defensive player of the year, just be an athlete and see what happens. Like, you're going to have favorable matchups considering Aiden's on the other side. Just go be an athlete and stop the run. Do exactly what you did at Georgia, and the development will come. So I think that's what Detroit picks, or Detroit has him doing, if this were to be the scenario.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, honestly, here I really don't know where to go exactly. I didn't have somebody picked out beforehand while you were going through. I think edge is definitely a need. Somebody I like a lot is Donovan Ezereku. I think he's a little undersized. Had great production, and I think if you get him out there kind of in that Frankie Louvu role where you're just telling him to get after the quarterback, he's not a stand-up linebacker, but He's coming off the edge, and I think Donovan Ezeraku would be a great pickup. Somebody that can just their only job is to get after the quarterback, and they're trending up. And I think adding great players to provide a good role, such as Donovan Ezeraku coming in, and they're like, do your job, do your 111th, and we'll work around it. So that's who I'm taking there at 29.
I like it. This is arguably the best bend in the entire class. This guy is low to the ground with his edge rushing or pass rushing skill set. A guy who also had a lot of production. A guy who's still able to develop as well, like you mentioned, is in there too, Evan. So I like this pick a lot for them. I think edge makes a ton of sense. If they're going to go defense, I think edge makes a lot of sense here. So I like that pick for them quite a bit. On to the Buffalo Bills. So at this spot here, another team that, again, you got not a ton of needs when we're kind of at that range here at the back end of the first round. Looking ahead here, we're going to actually take another corner here in the first round, a guy that we haven't talked about a ton, but a guy that I think is a good scheme fit at this spot is going to be Trey Amos, corner out of Ole Miss. I think, they did re-sign Christian Benford. They re-signed a lot of other guys they have. I think, Micah, you mentioned corner is probably still a need for them at this point. I think Trey Amos would fit them from a scheme standpoint. And so I think this would be the pick ultimately if the board shook out this way.
Yeah, and no, Trey Amos is a great player. A lot of people are much, much higher on Trey Amos than I think. The draft community is pretty high on Trey Amos, I should say that. Pick 31 here. These top two guys, I've said Kenneth Grant's name 4 times. I think it might be time that he goes. Luther Burden is so tempting, especially given, Rashee Rice with the injury. What's his face? The other guy, Xavier Worthy, going to be missing at least, 4 to 6 games. I think it's 6 games. Receivers a possibility certainly here. But Kenneth Grant is way too good to still be here. Personally, I'm taking Walter Nolan over him, but I think Kenneth Grant goes higher in real life in a predictive mock draft as we're doing in this sense. But yeah, I'm going to take Kenneth Grant, pair him up next to Chris Jones, and you're good. That's going to be your next Chris Jones there for the next decade. So let him learn a thing or two, and then call it a day. But Evan, we'll pass it over to you. You get the last pick of the first round here. What are you doing?
Yeah, so I have a pretty exciting pick here for Graham. I'm going to be making a trade. Titans are coming up to 32.
Whoa!
To get their wide receiver of the future in Luther Burden.
All right.
I love that, man. I love that. We're going to have the Titans.
Get the 5th-year option. Oh, hey, no.
We're just going to call it a true swap right there. And you're going to take Luther Burden, is that correct?
Yeah.
Just want to double check that.
Yeah, taking Luther Burden, I think being able to get that 5th-year option for somebody of his caliber, somebody that really has home run ability every time he touches the ball, I think would be huge for the Titan wide receiver room. Not entirely too sure who's going to be in that receiver room this year. Is Calvin Ridley coming back?
Yeah, Calvin
I think he's
Ridley,
like the only guy they have, to be honest.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So with him coming back and having Luther Burden be able to play all over the field, play in the slot, I think you could get Cam Ward, somebody that kind of runs the same role, maybe not as much in the slot, kind of use him everywhere, but as he had with Xavier Restrepo at Miami. And I mean, Xavier Restrepo is running a 4.940, and he's able to put up 1,000 yards. I think if you have somebody like Luther Burden out there, I think they'd be super explosive together, be very exciting, maybe right behind the Browns with Shador and Travis Hunter.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Tighten up, baby.
Let's
Tighten
go.
up. I'm repping
Micah's
I knew I had the first pick today, so I had to put on my Titans gear.
Appreciate that. Yeah. No, I'm really interested in that there, Evan, because I've always been saying if the Titans don't move off of number 1, which has been that way for a while now, need to accumulate draft capital. I've always said let's trade back from 35. However, there's been some buzz about maybe loving a receiver potentially. There are a lot of late first round caliber receivers that are going to inevitably fall a little bit. So I know they're taking they're bringing in Luther Burden for a 30 visit here in the very near future as of the recording of this video. I would be ecstatic about that. I think this guy is, again, as long as the character report shakes out for you, this is a highly skilled player and a guy who's going to add a lot of juice to a very desperate receiver room. So I don't think this is actually entirely out of the realm of possibility for sure. So very interesting and very exciting as a Titans fan, I would say.
Yeah.
I think that Luther Burden can also, in my mind, be thrown into that category of people kind of overthink it. Go back to the tape, watch 2023. But granted, a lot of these guys had better tape 2 years ago than they did last year. So I get it in a sense, but I don't think you can look over a guy like Luther Burden that had an amazing 2023, still had a good 2024. Quarterback play was just not there, wasn't helping him out. So I think getting somebody like that late in the first round would be awesome.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Micah, do you have any other thoughts on that? Or?
No, I mean, as we're kind of wrapping up the video here, I think that we had kind of a similar trajectory as what most people have this first 5 picks, and then once we hit 6, all hell broke loose, and we kind of made some things happen. So I love what we did here, Evan. We're definitely gonna have you back on at some point for another video if you'd like to join us. But yeah, does anybody have any closing thoughts before we wrap it up, Graham, Evan?
I think that this is, again, we talked about it. Anything could happen, especially in this draft. It's always the case, but especially in this draft with so many closely graded guys. I think as far as it stands right now on April 10th, 14 days away from the draft at this point, I think a lot of these are pretty likely to happen based on need, fit, all the stuff that we talked about. So, it'll be interesting to see how far off we are. But I think for a 3-person mock, I think this actually worked out probably pretty closely to where it's going to end up being in about 2 weeks from now. So that's all I got to say.
I agree. And I think back to what you said, Graham, I think there's after maybe pick 15 or maybe not even pick 15, just top 15 players in this draft, you can kind of grade everybody in a similar tier. So I think there's a possibility for almost anything at every single pick. So this is going to be a really exciting draft. I know we're all getting together, so it's going to be super fun. Super excited for it, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had to.
We had to.
Said, he's the half brother and brother telepathy. So yeah,
exactly. Yeah, this is the step brother of brother telepathy. But no, that's super exciting. We appreciate you as always for coming on. And yeah, I think that's all we got for this video. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. And this was our mock draft. We'll have, I believe, me and Graham will have one more coming out, our final mock draft where we give it our best predictions. We'll have a few more videos coming out here shortly. But yeah, we appreciate everybody. And thanks for tuning in. Until next time.
Thanks, everybody. Yep, we'll see you later.